Hi, Wendy and Dr. June. Tell me a little bit more about yourself and your work.
Yeah.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Sure. So my name is Dr. June Chin, and my story is I was actually a patient, a cannabis patient, before I even became a physician. When I was a teenager, I was diagnosed with a crippling arthritic disease of the spine called ankylosing spondylitis, or AS for short. And what ends up happening is your spine literally fuses together. It's almost like crazy glue. You lose the ability to flex, to extend, to rotate, to turn your head. And I went through conventional treatment, of course, as a teenager. I did NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications. I did muscle relaxants. I did over-the-counter acupuncture. I even did epidurals. And I'd wear this back brace all the time to give myself stability. And by the time I got to medical school, I was having such a hard time standing. And I was so disheartened because I was surrounded by wonderful physicians, great medical minds, but no one could really help me. And one of my attendings, one of my mentors, Dr. Levine, pulled me aside one day. And he was a specialist in HIV and AIDS. And he said, "What's going on? You're always wearing this back brace. You're having a hard time standing in the OR or helping deliver babies. You're not going to make it. You're not going to make it through med school like this." I explained that I had AS. I explained that I was in excruciating pain all the time, but I really couldn't take any medication, especially while working in the hospital or while studying. It was so sedating, and it got in the way of my academics. So he handed me this tincture bottle. It was marijuana. And I remember he had said, "Don't freak out. I'm going to give you something that's out of the box." And he handed me this tincture. And he said, "My HIV and AIDS patients use it. And it really, really helps them with the pain and discomfort." And I knew I had reached this fork in the road. And I knew if I didn't try something, that I was going to have to drop out of medical school. And to my surprise, when I took it, it worked. I took it over a weekend when I wasn't working. And by Monday morning, I knew it was working. So from then on, I decided to dedicate my career in learning about this plant medicine. And here I am decades later. I integrate medical cannabis in my patient care. I help patients work with other physicians, work with their specialists, and integrate cannabis safely.
I'm also a chronic pain survivor. My story is just a little different, but when I was 5 and 12 and 14, I was actually sexually abused. And from the abuse, it led to a severe trauma to my pelvic floor. So I've had pelvic muscle spasm for the last 20 years. And because of the abuse, too, I was actually placed in a group home and also a foster home at the age of 15. So I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression at 15 and a half and was medicated at 20. And I've tried, everything. I've talked to Dr. June a lot about this too as well. And I was put on a lot of pain meds and put on a lot of antibiotics, and that made me really, really nauseous and sick most of the time. So for me, my journey to CBD is quite natural in a sense where I'm just like, our clients that walk into Artemis. I've tried everything and nothing's really worked for me, and this is my last stop. But I am very realistic also about CBD, and I know that's not necessarily a cure-all. For some people it is. But for me, it was a gradual journey, and it's really carefully monitoring everything. I have a sheet at home to make sure that my dosing works with my chronic pain issues and everything. But I think that's how I fell in love with CBD, because it really increased my quality of life. And that's how I love Artemis, because everyone who walks in, whether they're a pain survivor, PTSD survivor, I just have this incredible connection with them. So that's how Artemis was born. We have a shop in the West Village. It's a curated CBD-only shop. And we've been open for about 2.5 months now.
It's only a 10-minute walk from here, right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Thank you for sharing such personal stories about how you came to be in the work that you are today. I know it can't be easy to share with a big crowd of strangers you don't know. So in health and wellness, I think 2019 has been a very big year for CBD as a buzzword. You see skincare retailers like Kiehl's marketing CBD products. I know that Barney's recently opened the high-end, a luxury CBD business out in Beverly Hills. So I'm really curious to know, like, what is actually the science behind CBD and what does it do for you?
Sure, I can address that. So the cannabis plant is a very, very complex plant. It's plant medicine with over 500 unique compounds. And THC and CBD are the most researched and the main players of the cannabis plant. Now, CBD, what's wonderful about CBD is it doesn't make you high. It's a wonderful pain reliever, anti-muscle relaxant. It's a muscle relaxant, anti-pain, anti-inflammatory, really potent anti-inflammatory. It helps with seizures. It has anti-tumor properties. It also helps decrease anxiety and uplift your mood. So it's a really safe part of the cannabis plant without altering your mind or making you feel sedated or euphoric.
Amazing. So I'm kind of curious, Wendy, I went to visit you at Artemis after seeing that you stocked Potley. Two of my girlfriends started a honey and CBD product out in California, which you stock. Candidly, I had no idea about the science behind CBD. I've never really used it as a product formally before joining you at your store. What are important questions to ask when you are shopping for CBD? What should our audience be asking?
Yeah. And just to kind of mention earlier when you talked about Kiehl's, Kiehl's did launch a facial oil and actually has, oh my gosh, that's just an example of what it would look like if you shot through the window. That's not, and I'm wearing the exact same thing too, so that was just a coincidence. I'm so sorry. No, the reason we did that was that we'll go back to your question too as well. When we built the space, we knew, I'm actually from the social world. I was basically, my career started on YouTube and on blogging. I've been a blogger and YouTuber for about 10 years now. And I was actually one of the first fashion-dedicated YouTuber. And we grew audience to over 90 million views and also about 5 million supporters in general. And I was able to also find another passion and leverage those online websites to the CBD world. But the reason why we had, going back to that photo, is that the reason why we had the window the way it did was that we knew that bloggers and social people might be interested in coming in. So we built the window to be very photogenic. That was the only reason. So a lot of people come in requesting for that shot. So we would literally move the books around to make sure that they'll get the shot through the window. So that's just a sample shot that we do for, influencers or bloggers who visit our store. But the store itself, we actually curated the store so then it's very easy. I remember when I first got into CBD, Colin and I happened to be in Amsterdam. And when I went through, I just didn't understand what I was looking at, and I was really confused most of the time. So from that, when we came back, I went to every store in New York, San Francisco, and LA, and I still had the same confusion. So when we built Artemis, we wanted to be a very curated shop that was really made for our clients, for you. So we have a discovery wall, which is what you see here, and that's curated by ailments. And we actually work with incredible people like Dr. June to help us curate this as well. So it was more of an easy process as you walk through the wall. After the discovery wall, we have basically an education board that we co-wrote with Dr. June, and the education board would mirror the categories on the second wall that we have, mainly because we wanted this to be a very easy experience for anyone who walks in and not have the confusion that I had when I first started. The questions that you should ask when you go into any shop or anything like that at all is that, it's honestly, I think it's very intuitive more than anything else. What's in the bottle? I think that's really, really important. What exactly is in the bottle? What is the profile that's in the bottle? I think the common misperception is that all CBD tinctures and oils are created the same, and it's not. It depends on the cannabinoid profile, the terpene profiles, and everything around it. The compound itself, as they say that, CBD is CBD, the compound is the same. But what surrounds the compound makes it very different. Are there other cannabinoids in the formulation? Are there other terpenes in the formulation? What's a carrier oil? All those questions are very natural that I think everyone that works in the CBD shop can answer for you. So I think that's very important. Another thing is that, what we do is that we do recommend serving size and also dosing size, and they should be able to help you with that calculation because sometimes it gets a little kind of, fuzzy and weird. So they can walk you through all that, and then also ask them, what is the best delivery method for you? Inhalation affects you very differently from a tincture that's taken sublingually. That's very different from a patch that's transdermal. So it just really depends on what is it that you're looking for and how the person at the shop can curate the relief for you. Yeah.
Exactly. And CBD doesn't work for everyone. So when patients come to see me and they're asking, how do I incorporate CBD into my health and wellness? I really look at it in the context of a full holistic medical practice. So you have to look at the medications that you're taking, because CBD can interact with the medications that you're taking. CBD can also elevate your liver enzymes. So you want to make sure that your physician, your healthcare provider looks at your blood work, looks at the list of medications, looks at contraindications, things that might get in the way of CBD. CBD can cause a little bit of nausea sometimes, a little bit of loose stools. So these are things that we talk about when patients want to come in and integrate CBD with their health and lifestyle.
So I have a quick question to kind of follow up on your patient history and experiences. Can you maybe walk me through a case where you've seen positive effects on a patient, and like the before and the after? I know you do a lot of research with children for epilepsy and also autism, so I'm really curious to hear more about that.
Sure. So one case that I can think of is a 15-year-old boy came into our clinic with his parents. He was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and he would make about 20 bathroom trips daily. I mean, everything revolved around him going to the bathroom. He didn't want to go out and socialize. There's certain restaurants that he would only go to where he knew where the bathroom was. And he couldn't figure out what the trigger was. He cut out gluten and dairy and coffee. And he was practically not eating. And he had lost so much weight. And his parents brought him in because one day he told his parents that he got some cannabis from a friend. And he started using the cannabis, and remarkably, he stopped running to the bathroom. He was able to sleep through the night. Originally, he easily got up 4 or 5 times a night running to the bathroom. He didn't get a full night's rest. So when he started cannabis, he started sleeping through the night. His stomach didn't upset him as much as it used to, and he felt like he was getting a life back. And his parents knew if, with or without their consent, he was going to continue using cannabis. So they brought him in so that he can, number one, be legal, get a legal medical card, and number two, get some guidance. Because when you're getting it from the unregulated market, cannabis or CBD, you just don't know what's in it. Like Wendy had mentioned, you have to know what the ingredients are. Stuff on the street could be laced with something. There's synthetic stuff. There could be fentanyl. God knows, any microorganisms could be in their mold. So coming to a designated shop, coming to a healthcare provider is the safest way to begin your CBD and cannabis journey. And that's what we did. We helped him get a card. He's able to take it at school. And if he's drug tested in any way, and it comes out positive when he starts employment, at least he has a medical chart, and a physician by his side to support him.
And so thanks for the responses. I'm kind of curious too, and maybe for those in the audience who are newer to CBD, what is the legal limit in New York, right? Because you sell these products in your stores, but not all products are accessible on the shelves. So I'd be curious to hear your perspectives about that.
Yeah. So the Farm Bill passed in December of last year. So the legal limits is actually 0.3% derived from the hemp plant. So cannabis sativa is the parent plant, and you get the hemp plant and you get the cannabis and marijuana plant. So for the hemp plant side, you get rich in CBD and just very, very little THC, under 0.3%. So it won't get you high in any way. But if you're very THC sensitive, then you can actually move to a formulation that there's no THC at all, and there's just pure CBD. Yeah. And you can travel with it too. It's travel safe as well.
Mm-hmm. So you can travel around all the states with this dosage.
CBD, yeah, with under 0.3%.
Got it. So I want to move to the next slide. So I I'm really curious as well to understand. I've noticed that CBD has really been marketed towards women in particular, as well as in like popular mainstream culture. It's, Bebo over there. I think that's a product that heavily has a female demo. I'm curious to understand what you think, what your opinions are about that, and whether you see the industry moving that way.
Have you go first? No.
Sure.
Yeah.
So women are, in general, I would say women are overprescribed and overmedicated. 1 in 4 women are given an antidepressant. And this could be females complaining of insomnia, chronic pain. They end up with an antidepressant or some anti-anxiety medication. And I think women as a whole, we take care of our spouses, our partners, we take care of our children, and then we have to take care of ourselves. So we tend to think outside of the box and be more resourceful and looking for alternative methods, for more natural methods. And I think that's why a lot of my patients are female, gravitate towards plant-based medicine.
That's actually very, very true. A lot of my girlfriends have actually been calling me about CBD because they'll go to the doctor and they'll say like, I haven't sleeping correctly. I haven't had that much good sleep. And for a few of my friends, they're actually new moms. So naturally, they're not going to get that much good sleep. Or they're just anxious because they're worrying about so many things. And immediately, it's actually an antidepressant that they're being prescribed. So they'll call and be like, can I look to something else? And then we go through, are you breastfeeding? Because you're not. Then we kind of look at the helicopter view of everything. But for us in the store, because, I'm there all the time and I love being a woman, and we have a little category for Pms Relief too as well, which is not very common in kind of the CBD shop side. But we created this because we thought, honestly, it was just fun. Like when I'm bored, I wanted to do something really like fun for our women. So this is the most interesting women in the world kit, mirroring the most interesting man in the world. Was it a beer advertisement or a commercial or whatever it is? So the story is that we actually have a story with this. And when people are interested, we actually tell the whole story. But she must be very busy, this woman, right? So she probably is just a little anxious at times. And so there's a tincture to go with that. That's just a daily supplement that she can take for acute anxiety or maybe just an acute moment of panic attack. Inhalation is one of the fastest ways for us to actually relieve that. So there's a pen, which is Bebo. Bebo is also the Hermes of cannabis. Laura Jones is there too as a gummy, and most people like to use that after their work hours to help them sleep, so that's why it's there. She travels a lot, therefore there's a little bit of a honey stick there for her to put it with her tea or coffee. She probably wears heels a lot, so there's actually a balm to help her with any foot ache or back ache or, any aches or injuries that she has. Of course, and there's a little lip product there for her too. So anyways, so you get the full story when you're there, and Colin tells it very well. I tell it okay, but he's like really into it.
And as Colin, let's hear about Colin.
Yeah, so Colin is the co-founder of Artemis. So we started together. He has incredible experience in the culinary world. He's been in culinary for about 8 years now, working at top Michelin star restaurants. So for him, and his passion is farming, growing, harvesting. So he's really just very invested in just the hemp plant in general. But for him too, when he reads the labels and all of our ingredients, he actually understands exactly what it does for our bodies because of his culinary background.
Perfect. So, Wendy, you are the owner of the first, woman-owned, minority-owned CBD shop here in New York. Historically, in America, cannabis criminalization has led to incarceration for many Americans. Mainstream sentiment has really started to embrace marijuana, in particular CBD, into everyday lifestyle products. What are common misconceptions people have about CBD, and how do you think we can combat these misconceptions moving forward?
I think I just have a quick touch on the decriminalization part. I think that's a great start, but I honestly think that's just not enough. Studies have shown that, white Americans take in and enjoy cannabis as much as people of color, but the incarceration numbers, the possibility to lose your employment, housing, that does not add up to those numbers. So I think decrim is great, and it's a really good start, but I think we just need to do more, whether that's just to imply more entrepreneurship opportunities for those who have been impacted, whether that's just to create funds for communities that have been impacted, or for dispensaries and companies to actually implement just more employment for those who've been impacted in that sense, But I think that's just the best that we can do for social equity is to actually move more than just the decrim side. But when it comes to misconception, I think the biggest one is that what we mentioned earlier is that not all CBD is created equal. And we have plenty of customers who come to the shop and they'll say, I've been taking it for a year and it's done nothing for me, which I love that question because the best thing I can respond is, can you please bring in anything and everything that you're taking for me to look at? And most of the time when we read the bottle, it's literally hemp seed oil. And there's no CBD in hemp seed oil, which is, you can purchase that on Amazon and basically in bodegas everywhere. So for us, it's just an investigative process to actually figure out like what is it that's not doing well for them. And then we can actually curate the right products for them in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest misconception that I come across is because CBD is derived from the marijuana plant, the cannabis plant, and also hemp. Patients always ask me can I get addicted to CBD? Is there a dependence? And because CBD does not make you high, CBD is not addicting. In fact, the World Health Organization recently concluded that CBD is non-addictive, no withdrawal symptoms, and it has a great safety profile. So they actually went further and recommended that CBD be removed from international drug control because it's so safe. So that's a really big delineation when you're using CBD versus THC. A lot of patients can use CBD during the day. It can function. I use CBD during the day for my muscle aches and pains, and you don't have to worry about the sedating effects. Now, THC does have therapeutic value. I don't want to dismiss THC, but since we're focusing on CBD, CBD does have a wonderful safety profile.
Mm-hmm. So how can you tell whether the CBD product you're buying is actually what's advertised, and what regulation, if any, exists?
Yeah, good question. That's a question that we get a lot at the shop. So for us at Artemis, we actually request lab tests and COAs from every brand that we onboard. And for us too, the curation is very tight. So if we onboard a new tincture, we usually drop a tincture so then we don't basically create consumer paralysis when you're actually in the shop. But we also look at profiles that are very different from every tincture. So every bottle has a different story and a different lab test and a different profile than another bottle is. But most brands are actually triple tested. They're tested at the farm level, they're tested at the extraction facility, and they're tested when they get bottled. And we request for all of that lab tests once it enters into our store. So that for us has been honestly the best way to approach this industry is just to be as transparent as possible. And we share this information to our customers and our clients when they walk in the door. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree 100%.
And what about the regulation piece? Is there anything that would prevent someone from doing, let's say, like false advertising? Because you have a curated set of products in your store, but maybe not all stores adhere to that, right? So how can you really tell? Or is there a resource that people can look into to determine for themselves, for their consumer safety? Do you know of any?
It is hard to tell. I mean, I was at the pizza shop the other day with my kids, and I saw like at the cashier there was a CBD shot for energy, and I was just looking at it. I said, I can't believe this. I'm at the pizza shop, and I look at the back, and it says cannabis sativa seed oil, so there was no CBD in it. And you go to your smoke shops and you could see CBD, and it's everywhere. Amazon has CBD tinctures that may or may not have CBD in them. So because we're in this legal gray area right now, it is very hard to figure out what's what's exactly in it. So you really have to be a smart consumer. Look at the back of the label. Go to the original website for these products. Make sure they're third-party tested. A lot of the reputable brands are very transparent. So they will show you seed to sale what exactly the process is, the 3 levels of testing. So, I mean, when you go to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, you're looking at the back of your food label, right? You're making sure there's no high fructose corn syrup and non-GMO, things like that. So you're going to do the same thing with CBD products.
Yeah. And I think actually the CBD industry and the CBD market is very consumer friendly in that sense. I take probiotics and it says it's for gut health. I haven't taken it long enough to know yet, but I can't contact my probiotic brand and be like, can I see your COAs? Like that's not going to happen, you know? Sephora sells a lot of supplements and it'll say great for hair growth or nail growth. CBD usually packaging wouldn't necessarily say that. There's usually the milligram measures on there, the ingredient list, the serving size suggestion, but they usually don't make those type of claims that traditionally supplement industries would. But again, going to Sephora and buying those things, moon juice or whatever it is, I think if I ever request for any of the COAs, they'll just ignore me. But for hemp-based CBD brands, most likely it's already on the website. And secondarily, if you need it, they will email it to you.
Can you clarify for the audience who may not know what's a COA?
Oh yeah, it's just basically lab results. It's just certificate of authenticity. So in there, they'll show you the amount of cannabinoids that's in there. Most likely there's terpenes in there too. So they'll show you that, how much of it that's in there, any toxins, any contamination, any heavy metals, it'll show all on there too. It's actually not too hard to read in that sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to close everything up, I'm kind of curious, what's the biggest question or the most common question that you tend to get asked in your daily work related to CBD or cannabis and health?
Yeah. So I think for me at the shop, it's usually, would this get me high? Which is usually it's a no. Another question, I think because everyone's so curious, the waves of questions are very, very different. I end up honestly repeating a lot of the answers, and I don't mind doing that at all. When I was 8 years old, I had like a pet rock, and I talked to that all the time. So now talking and repeating the same thing to human beings, it's actually very pleasurable for me. So I just try to say it in different ways every time. But so in general, it's usually do I get high? How much should I take? So we always recommend microdosing just to start slow and steady, and then we build and we titrate up. And then honestly, for us, we're extremely, extremely lucky because one of our ethos at the store is that just to do no harm. So if we can't find you a product, we're not going to recommend anything for you. If your pain level is like a 10 out of 5, you might need something just a little bit stronger than what we can offer. So we're very, very lucky to have partners like Dr. June that we can actually refer them to at least getting them to the right direction in that sense.
So for me, CBD has been really touted as this magical miracle elixir, right? So last year, the FDA approved a plant-based CBD extract to treat children with epilepsy. But then you look at Budweiser, and they are investing in a cannabis beer. If you go to your neighborhood cafe, you can get a CBD shot with your latte. Mm-hmm. And then Sephora has this great CBD mascara that's supposed to thicken and elongate your lashes. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at this CBD cures anything that moves. So it's really not the case. CBD is a great, great anti-inflammatory. It can treat a lot of things because inflammation is the root cause of many of our diseases and symptoms, from migraines to PMS. To arthritis, right? So the most important thing is when you are going to use CBD is to really talk to your healthcare provider, look at the ingredients. It's really nice to have a place like Artemis, like a brick and mortar store where you can go and talk to someone and really become educated. There's a lot of misinformation out there, miseducation. So I think that's really the biggest thing.
I actually want to follow up on something that you mentioned, Wendy. What is microdosing?
That's so from all of the research that we've done, I think Dr. June can talk more about this too. There's usually 3 levels of dosing: microdosing, standard dosing, and therapeutic dosing. So microdosing is just starting very slow and small. You're talking about 5 milligrams to about 20 milligrams and building up. Standard dosing is usually a little bit, when you know you're dosing already, then you can actually adjust to your body and how you metabolize. And then therapeutic dosing is for patients which are a much higher dosing. So for me, for example, on a normal day, I usually take about 15 milligrams, like during the day, and I feel great, alert, my heart rate doesn't come out of my chest. Like I took some before I sat here, and like my heart rate's great. And on days when I have my pelvic spasm, I take up to 61 milligrams. So I because I document everything, I know what my dosing is, so then I can actually adjust as I go along.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Michelle. So everyone has a different optimal therapeutic dose. it's plant-based medicine. So there's a broader therapeutic window than, let's say, prescription medications. If you're on Xanax 1 milligram, it's going to give you this certain outcome. If you're on high blood pressure medications, it's going to give you this certain outcome with a 10 milligram pill. But when you're looking at plant-based medicine, everyone's different. Everyone's liver enzymes are different. Everyone's metabolism is different. So you really have to take control of your own health. You really have to journal how much you're taking and how it's affecting your symptoms. So less is more. If you take too much of a good thing, then you will get toxic. Same thing with vitamin A or vitamin B or iron. If you take too much, it can lead to nerve damage, coma, and death. Well, the same thing with CBD. If you take too much, you'll get nauseous. If you take too much, you can get anxious. If you take too much, you can get the runs. So a little goes a long way, and that's where microdosing comes from. You want to take the optimal therapeutic dosing by taking little bit increments, almost to where you can't feel it, and then journal your progress.
Dr. Chin, that reminds me, you have a book that recently came out.
Yep.
So tell us more about it.
Sure. So this book came out in June, and it's a really comprehensive guide that talks about cannabis and CBD, why it works, and most importantly, how to use it. So I think it's really great. Even if you're not interested in using cannabis and CBD for your health, it talks about plant-based medicine and how this can become an integrative part of your health and wellness.
And one thing I really love about Dr. June's book is that she actually gives you case studies, and she'll give you a description of what the dosing looks like, not the dosing, but the dosing, I guess, and the cannabinoid profile, so the terpene profile for those particular case studies. I've read a lot of books by now about CBD, and this is actually one of the few that actually gives you real case studies of what she's doing. So I think that's incredibly helpful.
Thank you so much. So at this point, we're going to open up to questions on the floor. So anybody who'd like to ask a question, there's a mic on the side.
Okay. So thank you. I wanted to ask you if you can provide some more accurate information about what conditions has CBD been studied to actually cure or alleviate. I know that generally national level research into cannabis was not very prevalent because of the illegality of it, but what has been actually researched in terms that we could compare to conventional medicine?
I get asked that all the time, especially by my colleagues, my fellow MDs. If you look at PubMed, if you look at journal articles, there's over 20,000 journal articles that reference cannabis receptors, the pharmacokinetics behind it. There's over 150 peer-reviewed studies. So a lot of these studies have been outside of the U.S., unfortunately, but there are a lot of studies out there.
Could I just to follow up? So when we look, I'm trying to compare, for someone that, suffering from some chronic condition and they're looking for some remedy, if they go to a conventional doctor can say, conventional medicine with all its deficiencies notwithstanding, the doctor can say, the latest research that we have shows that this helps this percentage of people. These are the known side effects. They appear in this percentage of people. Are you able to make these claims and statements about any of the products that you've discussed?
The biggest hurdle that we have is it's still federally illegal for cannabis, THC, CBD. CBD just got through the hemp plant. We can use as a nutraceutical, as an over-the-counter. We know it has a lot of therapeutic properties, but that is our biggest hurdle for our clinical trials. If you want to go to my website has a research section, and I have every ailment and all of the research articles pertaining to cannabinoids and why it might work on a pharmacokinetic level. So I always have, if you're talking to your physician, you can always point them to that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can you speak to the interactions between SSRIs and THC? Also SSRIs and CBD?
Sure. So a lot of my patients are on antidepressants or on SSRIs. Cannabinoids will affect the serotonin receptors. So it's very smart to talk to your physician about integrating it safely. Sometimes my patients, especially female patients, because of our estrogen levels, we're very sensitive to both THC and if we're on an SSRI, it just makes it that much more delicate. That's why compared to our male counterparts, you might find that you reach euphoria or you're very, very sensitive to cannabis in general. It's because of our estrogen levels. And if you're taking an SSRI, if you've taken it for a long time, your brain chemistry has changed. Your brain chemistry has adapted to the SSRI. Or if you're taking an anti-anxiolytic, same thing applies. So you want to be very careful when you're integrating CBD and THC. If you take too much, it can lead to actually a very depressive state or sedating state. You want to take, again, microdosing with optimal therapeutic dosing.
What's known about the effects, both positive and negative, on sleep?
Sleep, insomnia, my goodness. That's a good one.
That's
we all
the
have
biggest
it.
one that we have.
So insomnia is difficulty either getting to sleep or staying asleep. And what's beautiful about both CBD and THC is that it can really help with insomnia. So now how can CBD help with insomnia if it doesn't make you high, if it doesn't sedate you? CBD can actually help calm your nervous system through what's called your GABA receptors in your brain. And GABA is a really calming neurotransmitter. It tells your body it's time to power down, it's time to shut off the day, and sort of just basically ground you at the end of the day. A lot of times my patients will reach for a glass of wine or a cocktail because they're so wired, but they're tired at the same time. But alcohol is actually the worst thing that you can do. That's why you get up in the middle of the night. So with CBD, you can take it during the day. It helps your body self-regulate so that you can go into that sleep state a little more easily. And depending on your formularies, the delivery methods, you can use inhalation, you can use tincture, or you can use sort of a capsule or an edible, depending on if you need help falling asleep right away, in which case you'd use an inhalation method, like a vape pen, or if you need help staying asleep, then you would use a capsule or a tincture so that you're not waking up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m.
If I could follow up, what about then dependence for sleep on CBD and THC?
So this is published by the National Institutes of Drug Abuse. This is a really nice graph that you can look up. CBD is not, there's no dependence on CBD. But if you just look at cannabis, so you're looking at all the cannabinoids, including THC, there's a 9% dependence rate, which is the same as caffeine. So same as your cup of coffee.
But I'm specifically talking about the dependence for sleep.
For sleep.
Yes.
So needing it all the time for sleep, you mean?
Yes.
Like, so using it regularly, like you can't sleep without the CBD? That's a great question.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, okay, hypothetically. So what's wonderful is because CBD... What's wonderful is because CBD is working on your GABA, your body is self-regulating. Your body is going towards this equilibrium, this homeostasis. So a lot of times my patients will use it for the first 3 months, and then they might use it on a Friday or Saturday night if they've been out and their sleep hygiene is not the greatest. So you're not using it all the time. Xanax and sleep aids also work on GABA, but it's more of a synthetic way of working on GABA. So it's the same mechanism, but more natural.
My question is around inflammation. We know that, for example, sugars are super bad for you because it creates like cancers and da 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 da. Now I know that for CBD, it's supposed to reduce inflammation for pain. Does it have the same mechanism of reducing inflammation for all the bad stuff that sugar creates? Will it make you live longer through like lower cancer rates and heart attacks?
The magic elixir. So when I help patients integrate CBD, it's not, that's it. Like you still have to live a healthy lifestyle. So I always talk about an anti-inflammatory diet, cutting out the sugar, really limiting gluten and dairy, a more alkaline diet, if you will. Of course, exercise is a key. So CBD for my patients and for myself really just sort of breaks the storm. It's sort of a parting in the cloudy skies, and it allows you to exercise a little bit better. It allows you to sleep better. It allows you to become healthier so you can integrate the other things in your life.
But is it, for example, as efficient as, say, blueberries, which are also anti-inflammatory from.
I don't know if it's more efficient as, but I think it could be a part of your repertoire. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm actually curious about the relationship kind of between THC and CBD. We know with the Farm Bill, the legal limit is 0.3% THC, but kind of in a future state, perhaps, of total legalization of cannabis. Like we see in legal states today, the CBD that's sold, perhaps it's cannabis derived versus hemp derived. It has a much higher percent of THC in it. And I've read some things about how that helps activate the benefits of CBD. So I'm wondering, like, are there real health benefits in the future when that's commonly more sold of having a higher percentage of THC in the CBD that we're taking?
That's a good question. Because you had asked about that too, about what it would be great if you could incorporate THC into your store.
Yeah, it's just a little bit more. Yeah, I think for some clients that we have, 0.3 is perfect, and that's what they need to go on, and then they can actually, it's very functional during the day, and then it's not for them to go to sleep. If you're a chronic pain sufferer, you might need a little bit more THC for that, and that's just something that we cannot offer at the store. That's why we have Dr. June here for that. But, on the legal states, it's usually by ratio. It's like, 100 to 1, 20 to 1, 1 to 1, or whatever it is. In New York, it's just 0.3, So yes, I think that'd be nice for us to one day get to a much higher THC level just to help with the microdosing and just the daily pains. But I mean, that's something that, like, do you think that is something that people need in their lives more than 0.3? Or is that 0.3 is a good, number for functional, adults?
Well, again, everyone's individualized. So sometimes my elderly patients can't tolerate anything, and they do really well with CBD, whether it's derived from hemp or the marijuana plant. Sometimes my patients that have extreme pain, my cancer patients, my epilepsy patients, my irritable bowel disease patients need a little bit of THC, and you can sort of activate the CBD with the THC. And there are ways that you could, create those tinctures on your own. So some of my patients will go to Artemis, buy their CBD tincture, and then get a medical card through myself, and then go to the dispensary, the designated dispensary in New York, and purchase THC. So they're mixing and matching.
Do you find that the CBD is more effective with a higher level of THC, or is it as effective with the current level of THC that we have now?
It really depends on the patient. If a patient has a broad spectrum CBD product from the hemp plant, they can get some really good mileage with that. But it depends on their disease and their symptoms. Sometimes it doesn't touch it at all, and you really need THC and CBD and all the other minor cannabinoids and terpenes in it.
Hi, to you both. Thank you so much for coming and just sharing your story. I think I'm really curious on, there's been so much change and so much entrepreneurship that's been within like the cannabis and CBD industry as a whole. What were some of the key challenges that you faced? Maybe a question more for Wendy.
Yeah.
Some of the key challenges and how you overcame that when you started your business.
Yeah. So I think for us, when we got the space, we started building out thinking it was a normal business, and it's a very special business in that sense. But little things were a little harder, like insurance for the building is much higher for a CBD retail space, even though it's very normal in that sense. Security is a little more expensive in that sense too. Also, I think the biggest hurdle we have right now is that merchant card is just not available to us. So we cannot accept credit card. We want to badly, but we just cannot. We've been going through 5 different banks, major banks, and also small community banks in legal states as well, and they just wouldn't take us. So we're waiting for beta testing from another merchant card service provider to hopefully we'll get that. But things like that, we did not anticipate. Honestly, we didn't. We have a solve for that now, which you see at the store. But just a little things like that we didn't think about. But overall, though, when it comes to just community and client-based, it's been very, very welcomed. We're usually the first stop for people who are very interested in CBD, or they heard the buzz about it and they're coming in to ask more questions, or the last stop for people who've tried everything traditional medicine that can provide and they haven't found relief, and now they're here for just more education and more learning. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Hello, thanks for coming in. I had a question around either the physiological or molecular impact based on the delivery method. So if you could talk through briefly, like, what should people be using inhalation for, tincture, gel cap, whatever it might be? Maybe a high level there would be helpful.
Yeah, that's
We had
an
a great
excellent
episode on that.
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. So Josh and I have a podcast together, and we talk a lot about this, and we really love it. I think that's actually one of the biggest questions that we get at the store too as well. So we have a little board at the store that will walk you through all of the different delivery methods, but just a helicopter overview. Usually delivery methods are divided by the onset time and the duration. So for example, inhalation has one of the fastest onset time, but the shortest duration. Tinctures usually have an onset of about 45 minutes or so, and the duration is about 6 hours or so. So people will usually like tinctures because they can microdose many times throughout the day if they wish to. And it's much more accurate. You can actually dose at 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 20, whatever you want to, because of the dropper. Edibles, because it goes through our gut and also our liver before it hits our bloodstream, it takes about an hour and a half to kick in, and it'll stay with us for about 8 hours or so. So if you want to layer it together, usually people would do an edible and then a pen to help them. The edible will help them stay asleep, and the pen will help them put them to sleep, if that's the case. Transdermals are patches. There's usually an emulsifier attached to the patch that will grab the active ingredient all the way to your blood level. Transdermal is the longest because of that. The patch can be worn for 12 hours to 24 hours, but it's microdosing you very slowly throughout the whole process. Yeah, and there's also CBD and beauty products too as well. For Kiehl's, there's no CBD in there. But we do have CBD beauty products at the store.
So I'm someone that's lived with chronic pain for probably about 6 years after a back injury from sport, and had surgeries and PT 3 times a week that I still do. One of my last resorts was to try CBD probably about 2 months ago, because my nervous system gets really crazy and can't sleep. I tried tablets or the capsules. Didn't make me feel great, so I just sort of stopped it after taking 2 or 3. You mentioned like going into the store, you're going to microdose is probably a starting point. Like, can you talk me through, like, knowing those things, how you're going to start someone on a microdose, what the best method to take that would be as well?
Sure. So when you're taking capsules or edibles, what happens is your liver enzymes metabolize the cannabis. So it can become really uncomfortable or too strong. So when I have patients starting off for microdosing, I usually recommend either a tincture or using the vaporizer. So you're inhaling, or you could use, topicals as well. With edibles and capsules, it's a little bit harder to microdose because it's, if you're especially new to CBD or cannabis, you might have a different expected outcome.
Yeah. If, for example, if you went to the store, my question to you is that what did you feel when you were taking it? How many milligrams were you taking? And what's the carrier oil that's in the capsule as well? Maybe if you had a stomach upset, it might be MCT oil that gave you that stomach upset, so it would change to something else. You took 3 tablets or 3 capsules, you said?
I just took one.
Oh, one.
Tried it 3 times.
Oh, got it.
I just took one each time.
So it might be the formula. It might be the actual, CBD capsule, the name brand, that is not agreeing with you. And maybe there's other additives to it. A lot of times people are sensitive to the carrier oil that's in there.
Yeah.
So have you seen, this is for Dr. June, so for your patients, have you seen patients actually stop using THC after CBD, after a while of being on it, and have they remained that way, stable, like balanced?
Yes, again, with CBD, there are no withdrawals, there's no dependence. And even, like I mentioned, the World Health Organization did a report on that. So it can be used safely, it can be used situationally. If patients that, like for me, if I travel, there are certain countries that I just won't take products to, and then I just stop taking it. And then, you'll notice a week or 2 you're achier, maybe you'll have more inflammation and I'll have to supplement with other things, but you can definitely stop safely with CBD.
So when you stop with CBD, doesn't your body just go back to how it was before?
No, because you're taking away that inflammation. This is not a Band-Aid, right? You're not just masking the symptoms. You're actually getting to the heart of the problem. So you're really taking away that inflammatory, that chronic inflammatory, that brewing inflammatory response that originally got you in trouble in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And for those that, I always get, my doctor says there's nothing out there. I want to get educated. There's an educational platform that Joe Dolce, my business partner, and I put together for physicians, for pharmacists, for dispensaries. It's called Medical Cannabis Mentor, and you can look that up. And it's well cited. It's an online platform, so your health providers can take it, at their own time. So that's really a poor excuse when I always hear my colleagues say, "Well, there's just nothing out there. How do I learn about it? There's not enough research," and that's just simply untrue.
Hi, thank you for coming, and thank you, Michelle, for organizing. It's been great. Can you please talk us more about the negative side effects of CBD? And a second question is, how do you see the FDA regulating this space? Because it seems like a little bit the Wild Wild West right now. How do you see the FDA playing a big role in there?
I think it's challenging because this is unprecedented. Here we have this plant-based medicine that people have been using for centuries. So we have the medicine first, and now we're trying to backtrack and create it I just fit it into a pharmaceutical model. So that's the challenge that the FDA has. We're sort of like backpedaling. And in terms of side effects, if you take too much CBD, you can get a stomach upset. You can get nauseous. Your liver enzymes can increase. You can get runny stools. Sometimes patients that take too much CBD will get anxious because it is energizing at larger doses. But again, that's the same thing with other nutraceutical supplements. Just because it's natural, that doesn't mean it's harmless. Again, I mentioned vitamin A or vitamin B with niacin. A lot of doctors will prescribe that for cholesterol. But if you take too much, you'll get dizzy and confused, and you can get nerve damage. If you take too much iron supplements, it increases your risk of cancer and heart disease. So it's important to talk to your healthcare provider, take small doses, and really keep track of how it's making you feel with your symptoms.
A quick follow-up. So the negative side effects are always with high doses, no? There are no side effects with microdosing?
There are less side effects, less adverse effects with microdosing. I can't make a blanket statement and say there are no side effects because everyone's different. Some of my patients get funny on Tylenol, or magnesium, right? Mm-hmm. So, but if you take smaller doses, there's less side effects. There's a really great article in Forbes recently, and it talked about a study a preclinical study. So they did it on rats about CBD, killing these rats and shooting up liver enzymes. Well, these rats were given 3 to 10 times the recommended dose of CBD. So of course, if you're over consuming, you're going to get these side effects. So the key is, less is more. Start slow, start low.
They tested on 5 rats. One made it, but sorry, my rock cat talking. But the 4 they gave them, they gave up 2,500 milligrams.
Yeah, 10 times the dose.
Yeah, and it's like humans really don't take that much,
Yes, and the rats that were given the low to moderate dose did fine.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
So.